Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Classic Quest podcast. This is the show where we break down the classic hip hop albums track by track, giving our thoughts and opinions on every single song. My name is Holden Stephan Roy.
I am your lady friend Bonnie.
Today, by request from the patron DJ Black Hurricane, we will be going through the album by Mr. Ice Cube, Death Certificate.
That's right.
So we're going to do the intro, babe. And you can skip that by checking the description of the video for the timestamps when we're going to talk about each song. Because I know we talk a lot. But we also want to let you know at the beginning that we're not professionals per se. And we are just people who started reviewing these albums with the intent to learn, to grow, to understand, and to just kind of become like wiser through our little quest of understanding
and to
the
put
culture.
Ourselves like in like, you know, their shoes and like try to like understand like what they were going through and like just like the whole experience, just to like get it, you know?
And especially with an album like, we'll say Death Certificate, step the fuck out of our comfort zone. Oh shit, I swear at the beginning. It's bad to swear at the beginning of your videos now, YouTube says, in regards to like an album like Death Certificate with its content. So just be able to learn about this other side of an experience that living in Montreal, Quebec for most of my life, all of my life, like it's not like I'm going to encounter half the things that are being talked about in a lot of these hip hop albums. So
yeah,
it's such a fascinating form of journalism and documentation of an entire existence that all just seems to go on, you know, and affects everybody. But it's just fascinating for us to go through this process together, and you folk in the comment section I'm watching who have contributed to it have been extremely helpful in terms of just letting us know when we missed the point on things, letting us know when we were wrong, letting us know when you appreciated what we did, and you kind of helped us get a lot smarter and wiser about how we approach these reviews. So for that, we are forever and eternally grateful for the comment section. And we like to read our favorite comment from last week's video. And last week, what album did we talk about?
Well, we did one of the DOATs, in my opinion, DMX, and then there was X.
And on that, we got a comment from my name, and it was saw DMX live last weekend, and my jealousy went. And it was an amazing experience. He was on stage, energy was incredible. And when you look up that, so I looked at the show, because I mean it was last weekend or whatever when that comment came. And I had like 50 Cent, a whole bunch of other people.
It sounded amazing.
Like it was such a crazy lineup.
There.
And then it made me just kind of look at how crazy it is to like imagine just living in New York City, and this type, like these shows must happen way more often in New York with these types of people than say Montreal, where
well, we get like Celine Dion.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't even think DMX can cross the border right now if he wanted to, because he's got his whole situation, right? I don't think he can leave the state. I mean, so like when you look at that, it's like unless we actively now go to New York,
which really isn't that far.
Oh, I'm just saying, but unless like we went there, we couldn't see DMX. But it might not be far, but it's also not just like the simplest thing for us to just get up and go do, you know. But I'm just saying, like, it must be crazy to live in a place where all of these live performances are happening. Like I keep reviewing guys that are just so incredible, and realizing that they're not here. They don't. You check their tours. They don't often come to Canada. When they do, they go to Toronto or Vancouver. They don't often come to Montreal. And I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe there's some bad blood in Montreal with a lot of these people, or some promoter or another. Still, it must be cool. That's all I thought. That comment made me just really revel in the idea of what it must be like to have especially the up-and-comers and all these little live environments and such. Anyway, let us know in the comments where you're from and what your hip-hop scene is like and what the experience is. Montreal is just trying to get organized, so that's pretty cool to watch happen. Anyway, we're going to get into the episode real shortly, so special thanks to the patrons: Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, DJ Black Hurricane, Lindell Williams, and Chris Prado. We'll touch on that at the end of the episode, but shut them out while you're still watching. And what episode are we doing today, Bonnie?
Well, this week we are doing, as requested by DJ Black Hurricane, Ice Cube's Death Certificate album, which came out October 29th, 1991. It's his second studio album, I believe.
Which we've learned that DJ Black Hurricane is a big fan of the 1992 albums, and this is close enough to 1992 to count.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw it out there. We like to start out the shows contextualizing our experience with the artist because I think it's like super relevant. If you've been down with NWA since the 80s, you're going to feel a way about listening to Death Certificate in 2019. If you just discovered Ice Cube recently or whatever era you came in, because like if I'm not mistaken, there's a good patch where he takes off a few years and then the 2000 stuff happens and the sound's a bit different and whatnot. So for me, it's always just, I think it's fair to y'all to let you know where we're at with it so that when we get into the review, you have that understanding. So Bonnie, why don't you start us off with how connected you are to Mr. Cube?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've, like probably in my adult life, I guess, like 18 plus or whatever, I feel like I've enjoyed some of like, you know, progressively more I listened to it like over the years. I would find songs that I'm like, oh, I like that song. Who's that by? And then it's like Ice Cube. And yeah, so I mean, and we've listened to like, you know, or reviewed some of his albums already, and he's really fun. Like he's like music that I just genuinely enjoy listening to. A lot of it, like if you just throw on an album, like I feel like any of them are going to be great. Like I look forward always to like listening to his albums. I just think he's a really cool guy, and yeah, and that's it. And like, you know, straight out of Compton, and like, you know, that kind of explained like the whole kind of process, and this was kind of touched on in that movie.
Oh, you mean the movie?
Yeah, the movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I guess that's about it. I mean, like him.
For me, it was like, I mean, I always kind of knew who Ice Cube was, but not for any of his early work, for real. I remember the first Ice Cube song that I can think of knowing was the "You Could Do It, Put Your Back Into It," you know, that track.
I don't think I realized that it was him that...
Me neither.
Yeah.
But I realized, I was like, that's the same Ice Cube? I mean, he's very versatile, and I mean, I knew him from his acting a little bit, but it was more like the Go to Church song. That song blew my fucking mind, and then Why We Thugs and a few other, all the hits from that era of Ice Cube. I was all over that shit and was listening to them a whole bunch. I can't say the albums, but I can say the hits from that era, and I really dug it. But I don't go too far back except for you know, No Vaseline, which is inescapable because it's on like if you're on YouTube in 2006 and 7, there's a lot of diss songs that are rising up, and everybody's talking about diss songs in rap for a while, at least in my experience. And so for the best diss songs, No Vaseline consistently appears in the top 5 of virtually every list I've ever seen. It's usually not given the number 1 spot. Usually number 1 is Ether and Takeover, but for me, as we'll get to, it's pretty high up there, is all I'm trying to say. But I didn't really understand his cultural significance or whatever. I just kind of knew Ice Cube was one of those guys.
I feel like, you know, as a kid, like growing up, you know, you would hear about him like at the Grammys or something like that. Like he'd be presenting, like you knew who he was, but you know, like same sort of thing. Like at the time, like I didn't really know who. What's the other guy that always hosts in the suede outfits?
I'm not sure.
You guys all know who I'm talking about. He always wears like a red suede outfit. I can't remember who it is now.
Fair enough.
But anyways, now I can't even remember my point.
All right. But basically,
but yeah, that's how you know him. Is like from like the Grammys or from the Oscars.
Well, because like the point where we're entering adulthood, Ice Cube is already a mainstream star at this point. But when you look into like his past, which is something we've done over the last couple of years,
yeah,
I mean, just let's take a quick second to give Ice Cube a whole bunch of praise and credit, because the guy, like with the whole NWA thing, and we did review Straight Outta Compton at the very beginning of this show, so it's probably a terrible review. Bear with us. Some people thought Bonnie was cute because she was saying stuff like they're good pals and whatever, and everybody had a good time.
Well, they were.
And
until they weren't.
But like we didn't really understand it then. But then when you realize that he also like went into writing movies and the success of Boys in the Hood and everything, and Friday,
Which I
and
still haven't
all
seen.
these different endeavors that he's gone on with throughout his life, and the true incredible story of how he went from his humble origins into being the media mogul that he is today, to the point where it's like, I mean, the idea of him being in kids' movies is pretty silly to think about, but it's also pretty incredible, all
Like
things
I
considered.
looked up his house because he makes a reference to like his home where he lives or whatever. At one point, and like, I mean, he just bought like a $7.3 million mansion from like Jean-Claude Van Damme or whatever, and it's just like I saw pictures of the inside and I was like, damn,
But like, all things considered, he's
he's doing
quite
well.
the incredible guy, because I don't think he's ever had a bad thing happen. Like, not a scandal that I can think of, I'm aware of. Like, nothing where it's like this guy is like, from what I can tell and what I
Like,
know,
he
he's
seems
blemish
like-
free. He's like the perfect example of a guy who just did everything right, pulled it off.
And his son, like they seem like a perfect little family. Like honestly, like they seem like really like great. Like, you know, definitely like, you know, a scary dad if you want to date like his daughter or something like that. Like that would be intimidating. But I'm sure like
But
he's actually like a really fun guy.
he's Ellen approved, okay? That's
He
how
is.
safe he is
He's
in
goofy,
the public
he's
eye.
fun.
Which is just crazy to think of, like, how far he's come when we listen to this album, right? Because, like, he's been on Ellen a whole bunch as we go and listen to this album, which to me is just crazy, all things considered.
Well, he's right there. It's like whenever she needs a filler guest, who's in the area?
And Cube's like, okay. And then they do some whack-ass shit every time where it's like, Ellen is just terrible when she has rappers on. I hate the shit Ellen just sounds goofy every time. Like, she tries so hard to like
to try to be cool.
to ghetto, like to add some blackness to her show, but like in the most awkward way. That's my understanding. I'm not a huge fan of her
and then
show.
Twitch just like sits here like hee laughing like he justifies it.
Who?
Twitch, the black co-host, DJ, whatever dancer he is.
Fair enough. But every time you see a rapper on, they always just kind of look at Ellen like she's a little wonky, a little weird. But they're happy to be there because, I mean, it's probably going to equal money.
It's great promotion.
I digress. This album is pretty fascinating. It's called Death Certificate. And on the cover, it has Ice Cube sitting there. And we also did America's Most Wanted, so that was a great album. But then it flowed into this one. And you just see him all in black, and he's got like his hand over his heart or whatever.
He's looking tough and angry as usually.
And then there's a corpse, and on the toe where it identifies the name, it's Uncle Sam, and there's American flag. So evidently,
wrapped over
this
his
death
body.
certificate's coming from America.
And they're in like the morgue or whatever too.
And like, it's pretty gritty. It's pretty bold. It's the type of album cover that, like, I wonder if you could get away with doing it again. Like, for the re-release
It's
on
like
Spotify,
Death to America, but
like they did not use the same album cover when they re-released it for the 25th anniversary edition.
Yeah.
They have a more of a, that one has like a
PG
flag
friendly.
with like an Uncle Sam, and it's being shot at like a target thing. But I love this album cover. I mean, as far as the ones we've come across, I'm not the hugest fan of the way the government treats people, and I am pretty punk at heart, we can say, in terms of my dislike for authority figures in general. So when I see a good fuck the man situation, something so bold and justified as this statement is, it's a powerful statement. Like, your culture is fucking destroying my community. Fuck all of y'all. And I just, to me, it's bold. And the more I've learned about the history of what black folk have had to deal with in the US of A, it really just adds a lot of power to this, because I imagine at this point Ice Cube has a lot of knowledge about or he's learning a lot about the history of his people, and it kind of led to this point. And I don't know. I mean, also, this got recorded basically right during the aftermath of the Rodney King riots, and it came out right after, but the recording sessions took place, if I'm not mistaken, like right after. So
and like
it's
that
kind
must have been pretty scary. Like, honestly, like he must have been scared, and everybody must have been scared. Like, I mean, the atmosphere must have been so tense and angry, and
and
like
then you
nervous.
and then it's like your government basically is betraying you with that. Like this whole police situation is kind of fucking whack, and it's not even just like a USA problem. I mean, Toronto and Montreal are not really saints in this subject. I mean, I guess the frequency is different, but shit still goes down in very awful ways where it's like, can you really, trust these fucking people? But no, not really. And so, I mean, I'm white, so I don't have to have the same fear and paranoia, and I recognize that, so I can understand that, being black at that point in LA, real, and then, like, at this point, he's Mr. like, fuck the police.
Yeah.
Like, he has been for years.
He has a very strong,
pointing
clear
out
opinion.
this kind of stuff, and then it, like, culminates to that point. It's not like it's stopped. And so, yeah, it's just understanding the significance of, like, all of the passion that would go into this disdain for his government is quite powerful to me. Like, to me, I really felt like, as far as covers go, this might be one of my favorite album covers, all of them, because it makes its message, but it's also doing it in a really artful, kind of well thought out way, because this album is really well thought out. We're in Spotify land, so we don't have vinyls up in here, but as I understand it, there were two sides to it, or two discs, or however it came, and there was the death side and the life side, and there was a whole concept to this project built into it, which is almost like revolutionary in nature of what he's trying to do with this. So this is a very fitting album cover.
Well, I guess in 1991 it was probably a cassette. Like, it was probably like, but I feel like cassettes were 60 minutes, which I mean,
there's still vinyls.
Yeah, there were still vinyls. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I mean, it would be less than an hour, so maybe half an hour.
When did compact discs become mainstream? I don't really know.
They started becoming a bit more popular, like 1994, 5, 6, 7.
Fair enough. That's not really the point. You can all let us know what medium you purchased this cassette / disc / vinyl / however you got it on there. But
Mr. Hurricane, I do imagine that you have it on vinyl.
Yeah, and I just think it's cool that, like, concept albums to me are like the ultimate form of album, because they're well thought out, constructed experiences.
Yeah.
And I think albums are way interesting. It's almost like what we do this show, partly because I think albums are highly underappreciated in this era, and people look at them like, oh, there's songs on it, but nah, everything about an album, down to the sequence of the songs, plays into a bigger experience. And the fact that Mr. Cube, I like calling him Mr. Cube, he took so much fucking time to create this thing. It's just worth it, Anyway, do you have anything more to comment here?
No, I'm good.
Do you want to talk about the funeral?
I sure do.
Full disclosure, I did all of my reviewing, like the part where we're going to talk about what I listened to, off the 25th anniversary edition on Spotify. So if, as we go along the way, there are like differences against the original version that I missed, well, first, sorry for not noticing. But let us know in the comments, because that's like one of the most fascinating things, is when they do shit like rearrange stuff or just change things drastically between releases. So anyway, let me know about that as we go. But this one is a little skit to start us off. You want to take it?
Sure. So basically, it starts off basically talking about how black guys are under attack at this time in LA, especially. That's where everything was happening. And I really liked the mixing at the beginning, and the use of like his own song, the blank that you love to hate, which I listen to all the time. I think it's a great song. Honestly, I do. I recognized it right away. And then he also references like the way his album is designed. It's, it has like the intro. It has two sides of the album, essentially, the life part and like the death part. So it's like a legit introduction. Like, it's like, in essay form. Like, the whole thing is kind of like very formatic and very thought out. So I think that's like really smart of him. it sounds then kind of creepy, and then we hear like pictures being taken and like people like lifting a dead body, and they're in shock, and like more pictures being taken. You could just keep hearing like the or whatever, and then you hear like a church organ, and like people are screaming and crying, and then we have like what sounds like a Baptist minister preaching, and like the whole thing is just kind of whatever, and then he's going on and on about like how he was a good brother, and how he didn't get into an excessive amount of trouble, which I thought was funny, like that he wasn't a horrible guy. Like it makes it sound like he was, he did some bad things, but it wasn't excessive, which I thought was funny. And he was clearly the wrong guy to fuck with, and somebody ended up dead because you fucked with the wrong guy, and that's pretty much it. And it's like a solid opener. I really liked it. I gave it a 4.4 on 5.
Yeah, he starts it off kind of like narrating it, and I like how he introduces it with the death side being a mirrored image of where we are today. So I guess part one of this project is how I see our world. And then part two is going to be a vision of where we need to go. So this is Ice Cube's mission statement or plan of action on how to achieve the next thing. So sign your death certificate, which is interesting because at first you don't really think a lot of it, but I find there's a bit of a religious symbolism in terms of, maybe it's not religious, but like the idea of having your spiritual self die to be reborn. So you have to start almost with your death to find your new life, which is, I think, how the album is meant to be. So you're painting this world, which is whatever. And anyway, we'll go through the songs as they go, but right away, you see that right away. So you have to sign your death certificate because it's almost like you have to be willing to go through this process or be willing to embrace the new direction to get to your new life. And then it's just a bunch of dudes and they're like picking up the casket or some shit. So you got the pallbearers and they're like talking. It's like, I can't even believe it. He'll get the door and then they walk in and you hear the preacher and he says that kind of stuff, and it's very impassioned and powerful, and it's a bit of a funny twist to have that he was the wrong to fuck with at the end. But you basically just get the sense that this is kind of a regular thing that everybody's used to, and you walk in and this is kind of, may as well be what the preacher's saying, because that's kind of how everything gets played out, Yep. And this is the type of shit that gets said at eulogies. I mean, what do you say at a eulogy of somebody who's a gangbanger who gets killed? Just in general, like as a person who has no real connection to that world in a direct way, I mean, you could barely think of what to say at the eulogy of an asshole. I mean, imagine somebody who, like, the actual literal story, how do you spin
like
it?
Like the parents had already disowned him and like that kind of stuff. Like, maybe he was just like that bad or whatever.
Like, and so an excessive amount of trouble. Like, this was a good kid, got caught up in some situations. And it's just, I don't know, just hearing the way that's worded just shows the reality so different. Like, in this world of middle-class America, you do anything wrong and you're just like, bah. But in the other world, it's like doing something wrong is almost like an expected part of life just due to where you're at, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I thought it was a really powerful start. I thought it was interesting to listen to. It's a 4.25 for me. It's a good introduction to the album. Do you agree? Did you give it a grade?
Yeah, I did.
All right. So are you the wrong person to fuck with?
Betcha.
RP and a running man. I'm the one that's there with the gun in hand. Make sure before.
All right, Bonnie, how do you feel about this track?
Well, this one starts off, and he's angry, and it's Ice Cube, and it's like he's like spitting like right from like the moment that it starts, basically. It's a really cool beat. It's really easy to listen to and like nod your head to. Like you really like want to like kind of like dance along with it a little bit. Basically, he's tough, and you shouldn't mess with him. And he owns a gun. He's just making that clear. And then, in like the middle of it, he kind of drops an old school beat, which is kind of funny to think about it because it's 1991. And so like an old school beat is like clearly it's gonna be like something cool from like the 80s, but like for us, it would be probably something from like the 90s. So I think that that's kind of like.
One could argue that 2003 is old school.
That's true. That's true. Frig, that makes us feel old.
You are old.
I'm not old. Anyways. And then basically Ice is just like the wrong guy to fuck with him. And if you are, like, no matter who you are, like if you're a gangster, if you are a cop, a lady, he doesn't care who it is, a rapper, whatever. If you mess with him, you're gonna get it. And I like it, and I will not fuck with him. So I gave this a 4.5 on 5.
Something that's really like right away, the beat kicks in super strong,
Yeah.
and it samples the Payback by James Brown.
It makes me think of like going to like the summer fair or something, like something like a song that you would hear on like one of like the rides.
But basically, it makes it really interesting because the first lyric is "God damn, it's a brand new payback," as though he took the Payback by James Brown and he's flipping it now to make it like his own thing, while simultaneously starting off his album like, yo, the lyrical content is the payback from the straight gangster Mac in the straight gangster Black. How many motherfuckers gotta pay? Went to the shelf, dusted off the AK. And I like the flow and the cadence that Ice Cube drops. He's got this like fast-paced but like upbeat kind of bouncy cadence to it, and he's really good with the timings too, so he knows how to use his pauses really effectively to elaborate and make everything just rhyme in a more like fun way. And this is pretty much him establishing, I'm not the pop sellout types like the rest of y'all, and it's almost like you can feel his disdain a little bit with shit. He is establishing right away that he's hard and he's for real, and he's this guy. He's Mr. Gangster Rap. This is where he comes from. And then, you know, because the person you love to hate can still kill at will. So the person you love to hate was off the last album, if I'm not mistaken. And Kill at Will is the EP that dropped in between. It ain't no pop because that sucks, and you can New Jack Swing on my nuts. And I don't really know what New Jack Swing is, but apparently it's some poppier shit. And he's not pop. So he's saying, like, we are the gritty and grimy. This is what it is. I'm still that real shit. But what's more interesting is, in light of all that, he's platinum without having to sell out, which is pretty hard to do and is a pretty incredible accomplishment in an era where, I mean, to do anything without selling out is nearly impossible in almost any genre. But Ice Cube flat out really just didn't have to. He just rolled with it. I mean, at least at this point. He did do some kids movies. I don't know if that counts as selling out. That's open to debate. But at least at this point.
He had kids. He has kids, right?
I know, like, it's hard to describe it because in my 30s,
he's just being a good dad.
But like, even then, in my 30s, what I would want to do with my time and the projects I would want to create are so different than being 18, 19. I think he's 22 at this point. So at 22, I would never consider doing kids movies. Now I'm like, that kind of sounds fun. I want to be
and you know
voice
you
in
get
a
to be
cartoon.
like goofy or whatever. You know?
So I don't want to like hate on that because if I really think about it, it's like, yeah, I'd want to do it. But when you think about it, like logistically, it's kind of funny. Some of them, you know, like maybe I'm just overthinking it again.
I mean, I haven't seen them, so I can't.
I can't say whether
they were good or bad.
It was fun. To me, it was a fun movie. But then, you know, fuck America, or fuck you, Ice Cube. That's what people say. Fuck America, still with the triple K. So people don't like him. He's still hated, and he doesn't care. He hates America and what it represents, and he establishes that by reinforcing it with a triple K, that the racism's still real and whatnot. I don't know. The rest of the verse is pretty strong. It ends proper. Second verse is the same kind of stuff. Ice Cube, I'm rolling with the motherfucking lynch mob. It's the number one crew in the area. Make a move for your gat and I'll bury ya. Ashes to ashes, dirt to dirt. Punks roll and I put in work. And, you know, you just get the sense that he's hard, he's proper, and then he's broken his affiliation with NWA. So stop giving juice to the Raiders because Al Davis never paid us. And I thought that line was super interesting because, well, first, the NWA cats was rocking Raiders hats, but secondly, it ties into the idea of giving free promotion to these really wealthy corporate identities. Like, I don't believe Gucci, as an example, needs a marketing budget. Like, what's the point? A bunch of rappers is going to sell Gucci to white girls, and that's just the truth of the situation. So those young, rich, wealthy people who listen to these mainstream rappers who mention a bunch of brands that they can afford to go buy, well, the rappers are the advertisement, and the rappers also wear the shit for free. And Gucci doesn't have to pay nobody. Louis V doesn't have to pay nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, that maybe they'll give like one or two of these people a few free things here and there, or maybe they'll set up a brand ambassador. But the other like 90% of people who are just going to mention that name for free or rock that shit for free or give off the advertising for free, it puts no money back into the hood.
Yeah.
And especially if you watch the Trigger Warning with Killer Mike is a tangible example of how money distribution flows between cultures in the neighborhoods. The black culture does not, the black neighborhoods don't keep dollars for very long based on the flow of things. So if basically he's pointing out that since the Raiders, nobody pays us, they don't give us any money, they don't contribute to our hoods, they don't give us anything, they don't put anything back in, why are you going to advertise for them for free like that? Millions of records, you're right there with the Raiders hat on the cover, you know, like that kind of thing. It's not wise. It's almost an exploitation of people, because in any other medium they would have to pay to place that promotion. Like in movies and shit, they pay a lot of money to be there. Just look at a Michael Bay movie. Everything you see, Michael Bay sold a little bit in a movie here and there to have these ad spots filled in. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of whack that in general, so many people give so much free promotion to companies just to try to be cool. Like, just in general is what it feels like to me, and it's just not wise. I mean, I'll wear some cheap ass brands like Old Navy, but like, I don't know, I never personally want to be the dude that's walking around with a bunch of really expensive shit giving free advertising to others. You want me to wear your shit and give me a brand deal and pay me to wear your shit? Okay. If I want to support you because you're like part of my community, okay. But just doing it for free, I don't know, maybe this is a big tangent, but that line was like really, really cool. And then, you know, he follows it up, I hope you wear a vest, you know, because it's scary and Ice Cube and whatnot. Yeah. And I like the fact that we haven't even gotten through the first song. And yes, he's coming in really intense and shit, but he's already brought up an interesting series of social, like a social political issue worth mentioning right in the second verse right there. Then the beat flips up, and he's not done yet. Even bitches looking like him Vogue got a hold on. Don't let me catch Daryl Gates in traffic. And Daryl Gates, if I'm not mistaken, is the police chief of the LAPD from 1978 to 1992, meaning he was the chief of the police during all this stuff while this album was being recorded.
Oof, that must have been something.
I gotta have it to peel his cap backwards. I hope he wear a vest too in his best blue, going up against the Zulu, break his spine like a jellyfish. And it's almost like this, he wants to destroy this guy. Fair enough, right? Like, fair enough. Letting these cops get away with the shit of beating down people. He's the guy who basically...
Well, like, at the time, too, it was like, you know, like the war on drugs and like just like the kind of like extreme behaviors that like the police and like the armed forces or whoever like took to like
you'll see like the tanks bust through the door and straight out of Compton, like tanks and shit, crush some person right there.
Like that's insane.
And this is the police chief that was there the entire way through the 80s, that allowed all of this, that ordered all of this to happen, to deal with the situation. Yeah. So the frustration is fair. And then we got Kentucky Fried Cracker, and I'm like, oh shit, Ice Cube's gonna go in on white people on this album. Mess with the Cube and you get punked quick, pig, because I'm wrong to fuck with. Man, I just appreciated the passion, and I'm like, yo, Ice Cube's so justified in his anger. And the fact that he's showing people that if you take the time to almost protest the situation through writing this, right? Yeah. Like, instead of acting out and actually going to kill the guy, he writes out this vicious fantasy of how he feels, and he names him. He's like, you are the source of my hatred, because frankly, you know, and everybody's going to know who he is at that time. But it's bold, and it says, like, you are the villain in my community. And there's a valid argument to be made that the police chief the police chief of a racist police department is the villain, you know?
Yep.
And I really like that. I thought it was really powerful, a really strong start to it. And the way but then you also have this like super bouncy like beat where you're just like, it's really happy, but like the lyrics are really powerful and aggressive. And I think that's an amazing
I feel like
blend.
that's just what he does. Like that's like all he does. Like he's
No,
not all that he
no,
does.
'cause,
but,
like later on, you get some hard sounding beats.
Yeah.
Like, but at
but
this,
like I like it because he is always just kind of like that hard, angry face kind of guy.
either way, I gave the song a 4.5 on 5, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I think we should move on though to my summer vacation.
Now every block close. Seeing which one will clock the most. Yeah, this is.
I love this beat. This is, I'm not gonna lie, all the George Carlin-esque stuff he samples on this album throughout the most part and whatnot. And I don't know, even this might be George Carlin he's sampling here. No, yeah, George Clinton. I meant to say George Clinton, not George Carlin. And he does. He apparently samples Atomic Dog. But all that funk, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a good
I
one.
super appreciate it. It is not my favorite genre of music. I'm throwing it out there as we go through this album. So I love the rhymes maybe more than I love the beats on a lot of it, but this beat is stellar. This is in my opinion, one of my favorite beats on this entire album. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Not to say that anything on this album is not produced with pristine quality and isn't super enjoyable and bouncy, but I don't come from bouncy car land. I come from the snow and the slush where bouncy cars are illegal. So for me, I've never had the joy of hydraulics in my life. I've never done it ever. It's just never gone on. So, because it's illegal here. And therefore, I would love to one day fly down to a place like LA and bounce in a car listening to Ice Cube. Like, that is a serious bucket list item before I die. Bouncing in a car listening to Ice Cube.
That'd be pretty sick. Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. That's Montreal fantasies.
Driving through Compton. Why don't you just go all the way?
That would be cool. It would be even cooler if Ice Cube's there, but I'm just pushing my luck.
I'm happy to be in the back seat.
Yeah, you can be in the front with Ice, and that's just polite.
Yeah, I'll be in the front. I'll be in the front seat with Ice Cube.
Just saying. But I like this song. I do think, though, in light of one of your recent lyrics breakdowns, maybe you should start us off, though.
Sure. Well, I'll just go through like the whole thing then. So he's going from LA to St. Louis, Missouri, and that's where he's going for his summering off, I guess, while he's because of all like the violence and like the riots and everything that's happening there, and how all like the police are attacking Black people and like the war on drugs. He basically left the city just to like escape all of that and to have like a summer away from like all of like that hectic craziness.
Peaceful, nice vacation.
Exactly, where nobody knows him, and I think it's like him and a few of his buddies go as well.
3 of his buddies.
Yeah. And I just have to say, like, I agree. Like, the beat is so good. Like, it's like a clap along beat. It's super fun. But anyways, violence is like happening, there in Missouri, and like, ICE is kind of like realizing that like things haven't changed. Like they're the same thing is happening here, and he's realizing that people across are as we find out as well in another song, which I'm going to mention shortly, is that it's happening across the country, and it's even at this place where he thinks there's nothing bad can happen in St. Louis, Missouri, exactly the same thing is happening. Drive-bys and shootings and gangs, and like they're all watching and imitating what's going on in LA, and the gangs are kind of extending, and so like there's the Bloods and the Crips are showing up in all cities all across North America. And, I don't know if anywhere else in the world if they're showing up. I wonder, I don't really know the stats on them. But it'd be interesting to find out if they're, like, international. But, yeah. And so the lyrical breakdown that I did was Just Like Compton by DJ Quick, which basically told the story of him and like his buddies like driving like basically touring across the states and going to different places, and the same sort of violence and gangs and everything else is happening everywhere. So like that's kind of what he's seeing. And again, how he's realizing everybody's copying them. Like, so he's seeing that they're sort of like the trendsetters in LA, and so that they should probably like think twice like about their actions and the way that they're doing things, you know, so that people don't copy just the bad things that they're doing, I guess. But that's my kind of like add into it. That's not necessarily what they're saying. And I like the mixed ins of like there's like the what sounds like a white woman saying like, oh, if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere, and that's exactly right. Like, you know, these kinds of things can happen anywhere, because, you know, people are everywhere, and, you know, there's always going to be somebody that's going to want to start trouble, doing something bad, whatever. And then he talks about the fact that one of his friends got shot. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about that. And like the beat is like super tight. It's super cool. And also like there's like the skit at the end. And it's like the cops attacking a black guy, and I'm guessing it's supposed to be him. And he like the cop is clearly like racist, power tripping, like basically just beating him up, like just wants to like take power over him. And then like Ice Cube is like, nah, fuck this. Like he's like had enough of this shit. And then shoots them. But
they're like, we're gonna do you like King.
Yeah.
What goddamn King? Rodney
like
King,
Rodney King, Martin Luther King,
all the goddamn kings from Africa.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so like that's like pretty powerful too, because like, you know, that's like a recent reference, and like that's gonna like really like hit home to a lot of people, especially like, you know,
and it is like the kind of shit the cops would say.
Yeah.
You know, to incite them and to belittle, to destroy the humanity.
Because like
of
that's
these
gonna
people.
like hurt your soul. Because like, you know, when you saw that happening, like it was probably like super upsetting. So, understandably, so like.
But then it's also like
for them to like rub that in your face, like
but
that's
also
bullshit.
to imply we're going to kill you or beat you down and we're gonna get away with it.
Yep. Yeah, that's true, I guess. Anyways, I really like this song. It's really nice to listen to, like overall, because of the beat. It's so good, and clearly he doesn't like the cops, and they clearly don't like him, and so he's just trying to escape, and he's just realizing that people are the same everywhere, and like all of this nonsense and violence is unfortunately happening all over the place. I give this a 4.75.
I agree with you on a lot of what you said, but I think there's something that Ice Cube describes here that's a little bit different right at the beginning.
Okay.
So it starts off with him getting on the flight heading from LA to St. Louis, and then I looked at where Missouri was on the map, and I saw I now know where Missouri. I didn't realize it was kind of closer to us than it is to LA. I'm bad at U.S. geography, and so as you say, it starts off, and it's got like incredible storytelling. Like, this is really like a riveting, you can almost feel the whole flow of see what's happening, like, damn G, the spot's getting hot, so how the fuck am I supposed to make a knot? Police looking at through a microscope and they lay everybody in their mama cell dog. So we established that the police, it's hot, there's too many and there's a lot of competition, so it's not really safe, you can't make any money. And because when they go to St. Louis, nobody knows who they are, nobody knows that you kind of get the feeling that like nobody understands the pro level of the crack game. Whatever's going on there is some amateur shit, whatever. They drove to the ghetto, check into a little sketchy motel, have their guns because, you know, they're in a little shady part of town and they look a little shady and everything's kind of whatever. And what's really interesting is when he goes, because busting a cap, but the camp fade so central because busting a cap's fundamental. People on every block close, seeing which one will clock the most. Yeah, this is the one, no doubt. Bust a bone, let's clear these out. So what you really see is that they kind of bring the idea of drive-bys and gun violence into the situation because they're from South Central. They're not afraid to kill people.
Yeah, and like that's how they do it.
And so they basically start blasting on them. We're Lench mob, this is what's up. Clean them out, that means casualties. We still have that LA mentality. And, you know, bust a cap out there in a hurry, wouldn't you know? A drive-by in Missouri. And it's almost like they brought it there when they did their little escapade. So in their efforts to escape LA and make some profit, they end up then describing this escalation of how it creates it, because then people are going to come and get their retaliation. But I really freaking like when he goes, triple the profit, making more than I did in Cali, breaking off rocks like Barney Rubble, because these mark ass don't want trouble. Because Barney Rubble is from the Flintstones, and his literal job was to break rocks. And when you're selling crack, it's another word to describe it. We ain't on an edge when we do work because police don't recognize the khakis and sweatshirts, so their specific gang markings and codes that they would wear that is clearly identified to the LAPD aren't recognized in Missouri, which is just completely separate. And at this point, it's not exactly like the police have unified databases and whatnot, so all you gotta do is bounce out to the next place and you almost become anonymous again. Nobody knows who you are. And then they start getting the girls, and then everyone's like, nah, we don't like this, and a war kind of breaks out and whatnot because they came in and set the situation up, you know. And then what I thought was fascinating, basically wearing our colors and talking at gang fuss, giving up much love, dying for a street they never heard of. And it's like, I suppose with movie, I believe that the movie's Colors is part of that too, which is about gangs and whatnot. But that movie comes out around this time. But then all of a sudden, everybody sees this gang life being put into these movies. And I know I've seen Colors when I was young, and I remember watching those movies, and it looked like this. It looked really dramatic, but like in a flared out, like everybody pulled out their guns kind of way. I mean, I've seen a lot of these gangster movies from that era. My dad was really into them for a while. I was like young, like 12, 13 when I was watching them, so I don't remember them, except that a lot of people pull out guns in these whole era movies. But then you have all these movies coming out that are almost teaching everyone what this gangster life is. Then you have these real gangsters, I guess, flying on over to try to make a profit, but willing to do what they got to do over there. And then it just escalates the situation where Ice Cube loses his friend in the third verse. Shooting in snowy weather, it's illegal business. People can't stick together. Fucking police got the 401 that LA ain't on surfing sun. But we ain't thinking about the boys feuding with the Hatfield and McCoys. Shit's getting tricky because now they're looking for the colors and the dickies. So basically, one morning, the cops break in at about 6 in the morning, which shoots back to that Ice-T classic 6 in the morning. And they try to catch him when he's yawning and put a Glock to his chest, and he paused. Then he ends up getting trying to give him 57 years and whatnot. And public defender doesn't care, which is a crazy thing because public defenders, when you actually look into the American legal system, in a lot of cases, the public defender defending one of the people that might be busted in this narc raid will be given a total of 10 minutes to look at the case and figure out what they can figure out before going in. 10 minutes to decide the life of somebody.
It's pretty crazy.
That's what you get for not having money being born into your family. And then you got to deal with the Crips and Bloods and the black families, and the white pride don't like no side. And so this is all the kind of situation of what goes on behind bars when you get to prison. No, and it's a riot if any of us die. No parole or probation. Now this is a young man summer vacation. No chance for rehabilitation, because look at the motherfucking years I'm facing. I'm gonna end it like this because you know what's up. My life is fucked. And that's just kind of how it ends. And you know, you got all these young people who are honestly just trying to get paid and shit. And I mean, I don't know what it was like back then. I mean, now we have the hindsight of knowing a bunch of shit, but I mean, back then you didn't. This was all you saw. Then I guess this is the only life you understood when you try to get the legal options and don't do what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
But it's just such an interesting point of like the consequence, I guess, or taking accountability. Like, look, we in the West Coast invented maybe this thing, and maybe, as you said, spread it everywhere. And maybe we should be a little more aware of that, because it seems like this is an interesting story because Ice Cube plays the gangbanger as opposed to playing the passerby or the guy who knows the guy or whatever. I mean, I don't think it's like, I think and it works well because the story ends in a bad story. The story ends in a negative outcome. And something that both Ice Cube, Ice-T, and these guys have gone on and said is, you're gonna rap about these drug dealer stories, it's supposed to end in a bad way, because that's how the real life goes. It almost never ends well. If you end it well, the story hasn't gone on long enough, is I think how Ice-T put it. And so I just thought this was gritty and realistic, but also starts to explain how things may be spread around a bit through the art form, through the way these different lives are going, and now it's everywhere, which is crazy. Just to think about how it's all over, that people have to deal with these same circumstances and whatnot. I thought it was a powerful track. I give it a 5 on 5. I like the storytelling over it, the way he raps, his cadence, everything is super fun.
Yep.
Delivery is powerful. And I like the way that it'll have like booms and gunshots and whatever in the background to really exemplify the what's happening as what he's saying it. Like if he says somebody bust in the door, you'll hear a door open. Shit like that. Anyway, the next one is a single with a music video and everything, and it's called Steady Mobbin.
And fools can't hold us. Every chance we get, we hitting up the roads.
This one has another funky beat. Very enjoyable as he bounces on through. You again picture the cars bouncing.
Yep.
It has a little introduction. The bigger the cap, the bigger the peel-in, because when you have a bigger bullet, I guess, it further destroys a head, peeling everything
Which makes
back.
sense. Yeah.
And when dealing with the Lench mob, you got to know steady mobbing is not just the name of the jam, but a way of life bound together by motherfuckers. There's no one to break them off something. Give it to me. Then the beat kicks in, and it has its little "There Goes the Neighborhood" sample, and it apparently comes from the movie Watermelon Man, which I've never heard of. And basically, it's letting you know that this isn't just a jam. This is how they are. This is who they are. This is their anthem of sorts. And then it's Ice Cube and his buddies get up to shenanigans, and he basically kind of paints out what goes on in the day, like 4 or 5 in a mothership, better known as a deuce, and we all want to smother shit, and so they're all in the car, and it's a beautiful, nice looking car. In the music video, at least, it's a very nice looking car. They're trying to make some money, and they're every chance we get, we hitting up rollers, coming up short with the green guys, and I might start slanging bean pies, or the bootleg t-shirt of the month with "You Can't Touch This" on the front. So the slanging bean pies has to do with the Nation of Islam, because they would sell bean pies. And what I learned in the Genius annotation is Common wasn't thrilled with Ice Cube for this, because he has a bar that basically goes, you bringing up bean pies and saying Ides on the same sentence, being like, how are you shouting out the Nation of Islam and Minister Farrakhan, but also promoting drinking, in the same song, which happens in this song, because in the second verse, he goes, told all my friends, don't drink 8-ball because St. Ides is giving ends. And so and I thought that was fascinating, because that's also a little shot at NWA, because they drink 8-ball, as we learned through Eazy-E and Ice Cube. We actually learned what 8-ball was. But now, because they're not friends no more, St. Ides is the drink. Like, we can't drink what those guys are drinking. And I think it's pretty funny how much of this, like, you can't wear Raiders no more. You can't drink that drink no more. And I don't know. To me, there's a little bit of a funniness to that. But yeah, it just kind of flows in, and he bangs a girl. And if you don't know, Ice Cube got drama house after screwing up Bust a Nut and get up out my white E-wings, I'm out the door. All you might get is a rubber on the floor. So I just picture it like he's banging away, finishes it, rips it off, puts his clothes on, and like leaves. Doesn't say bye or nothing.
Rude.
I mean, I guess. But that's how I picture that going down, and I suppose that's gangster. But man, that must be like such an awkward feeling to just be the girl in the bed after, or wherever, couch, car, wherever you did it. It's just like, Ice Cube, he smashes and goes. That's such a man. Like, I don't know what the attitude is. I don't know, because it's never happened like me like that. Usually, when I end up in those moments, the girls want me to stick around, and I like that shit because I'm sappy, so I do stick around because I'm into that. So I don't know what it's like to just really smash and go. Anyway, it's a cool song. Fuck Pactel, move to Sky Pager. Is that again the brand thing? Like, don't use that pager, use my pager.
Oh, maybe.
I like when he goes.
I don't know pager brands.
I like when he goes, rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, because that's like, I'd rather have to go to the court and deal with the jury of my peers than get taken out and carried in a coffin by 6 of my peers. Yeah. So, like, you got to be willing to kill or do what you got to do to stay alive. People get a little bit too drunk and act out and stuff. But, Ice Cube rolls on through because he's steady mobbing. Then he goes, eating soul foods, neck bones from M&M's. And I was like, wait a second. in Canada, there's M&M's Meat Shop, and I couldn't figure out if there was what M&M's was. Is that like a thing in LA?
I don't think so. I don't think
it's the same like our M&M's Meat Shop. No, I guess. Anyway.
I don't even know what. There's like barely any left, actually.
I don't know. And then he flows on in the third verse, and they want to go to where the ladies are at. And Ice Cube's car's got like better amps, so it's louder. And the girl gets on in and wants him to slap her ass, but hard, but not hard enough to leave a gash. So there's an optimal pain threshold of slappiness that we can find. I bet he needs to take his big old rings off before he slaps her ass, and then there'll be no gashes. But he's like, I don't play with sex. Putting on the latex, he does the condom.
He definitely makes it clear,
which is
all
very
about
good.
Wearing a condom,
which is super good. Our generation's bad at condoms.
Yeah, like their generation was much better.
Fucked around and dropped the bomb son. I think that means he came. I couldn't figure out if that's what it was.
Probably.
And then it came out sort of like confetti, and I'm like, what the hell does that?
Psh, like just.
But you're in a rubber, so maybe he takes it off and he all over her face or something, and then it's like confetti and like a rocket exploding. The bar makes sense to me now. I was confused about this until
I'm
this
glad I
moment.
could explain ejaculation to you.
Well, it's a glorious thing for Ice Cube to, as we'll find out later on, he's quite endowed, as he puts it. And then so this is just kind of a song about cruising around and doing whatever. The music video is very fine. It ends up with him and a girl going into the room, and the night's over. That's the end of his night. And I don't know. I enjoyed listening to it. It's a great time. I feel like, I don't know if it has the same heaviness to, let's say, my summer vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
But it certainly sells the lifestyle of how they're probably living their lives. There is a bunch of people who probably get up, how we gonna make $1 today, cruise around, smash a couple girls. Because he has sex with 2 ladies that day. All right, guys? There's the one in the morning that he just abandons after, and then the one that gets confetti dick. It's a good song. It's a 4.5 on 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty. I mean, you summed it up really well. It's basically just like another day in his life, and about him, and that involves banging the ladies, and wearing a condom and making money. Like that's what he's all about, and like that's pretty much it. Like he's there to make money and to fuck, and that's it. And it's good. I like the beat. And it, it does kind of like teach, throw in some of like the usual shenanigans while teaching you like some lessons. Like he's good at like kind of summing like the whole thing up and like getting like something good out of like his like, crazy story or whatever. So I give it a 4.4 on 5.
Before I move on though, we need to just mention how when he brings up the bootleg shirts, he specifically picks MC Hammer as the guy, like, we're gonna make money off of this fucker's name. Like, he's not like he says, yo, let's go sell Master of Puppet shirts. He goes, nah, that sellout rapper, let's pick him and do his shit. And I thought that was fascinating to point out too, and I guess that is a hustle that I never considered. But he does bring up like selling stolen shirts immediately after selling up the Nation of Islam stuff. So, I don't know, maybe Common has a point. I don't really know. I'm not experienced enough on this subject. So, internet, do you think Common has a point and that maybe Ice Cube was being weird? Or do you think that Common's being a little self-righteous here and he's thinking too deep on it? Because I wouldn't have noticed it if Common hadn't pointed it out to me and then I thought about it. So, since y'all know more about this than I do probably, it's a good question for you. Meanwhile, we will flow on. Also, do you prefer 8-Ball or St. Ides? Because I don't think I've ever seen either here.
No.
Anyway, Robin Lench is the next track.
Don't gaze, where you get to meet who? OG Mudbone!
What did you think of this one?
This one was funny. It definitely made me laugh. It's obviously like, their take or his take on Robin Lynch, who was like the host of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, because this is sort of like a copy or a dupe or whatever of like the lifestyles of the poor and unfortunate, and it's very funny, like the way it's very clearly like a mockery like of that show. And there were other shows that kind of like started like coming up, like maybe not that early on, but like Cribs, and like there's always just been like this everybody wants to see into like the celebrities world, even like Vogue's whatever 73 questions or whatever it is that's on YouTube. Like it is a chance to kind of see into like their world. So anyways, and so it starts off kind of with like classical music, and like the host is talking, and then like he says that he's talking to like whichever guy is living in like the house, but it's like some thug kind of guy, and he's just basically telling him to like fuck off. And I thought it was funny. And then he says like, and like the prize will be like, or whatever, I think it's the prize, I can't remember, whatever it is, that somebody is going to go to like the Strawberry Girls or whatever like that. And then he talks about that's where he is. And so the guy starts like calling out to this girl like, hey, how much for a head? But like it just like sounds like ridiculous, like this is him like advertising this. And so it's very like mockery, funny, and it very much proves that like Ice Cube is like a funny, smart guy in like what he talks about. And it's sort of like like how people will go and like watch and like they want to see like the inside of like the hood. People, it's just as like what is it called, like when somebody's like a watcher or somebody like
A peeping Tom.
No, but like an observer or whatever it is.
A
voyeur, yeah, of like because there is that culture of like watching and like trying to like understand like the rich and famous, and like at this time, like because there's so much news and it just was ongoing and like it was prevalent, and poor people and were becoming famous and stuff like that, that it was like shining us like a spotlight on like the hoods and everything else. And so like it was kind of taking like an inside look, but like from like a distance where it's still like a white person just like looking inside and not really like helping or doing anything about it, just like looking at it and going, oh, look at those poor people. And like that's kind of what it is. I gave it a 4.75. I thought it was great.
So yeah, I never really watched Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous with Robert Leach. I don't know what that is, except I can imagine. I was just trying to find out who the fuck was even on this show, and I couldn't figure out who they even talked to, as I assume it was like cribs or whatever, and they hung out with wealthy people.
Like this was like early on. I think this was in like the 80s and like the 90s, and then like in like in like the mid 90s and like the 2000s and stuff. Like there was obviously different.
And it got revived in 2018. Mm-hmm. But what's really fascinating about that tour thing is some guy followed me on Instagram after watching this show to show me hip-hop shit, and he's some like guy in the UK, and he went on the Compton tour and stood at all the famous places that like it kind of is like yeah. This song, except they all really exist. Like if I went to Compton right now,
for sure, there's like a tour of
I would be super tempted to take the OG Gangster tour. Like, I mean, to go see all the places the rappers have talked about.
And this is where this person was shot, and this is where this happened.
I mean, I know it sounds terrible to like admit to wanting to do that, but it was like when I was in Jerusalem, and I'm like, yo, these are all the Bible places. To me, it's the same thing. Like, you read about this shit, you hear about this shit. Like, I want to see Compton. I want to know what Rosecrans looks like. I just want to, you hear about it. I just want to know what it, I mean, I can Google Maps it, of course, and I have Google Mapped it. But just to be there, like, I don't know, there's so much culture and history that comes from these places, and I just want to be around that energy. I mean, maybe not all of the energy, but it seems like a cool idea. But at the same time, he's pointing out, like, as they're going through this tour, like, hey, yo, get out of here. Who the fuck are you? And it's like, yo, this guy is like, want to hang out? He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, who are you, tour guide guy? Yeah. And then his girl, like, some guy offers him $20 for his girlfriend, and like, I don't know, it's pretty good. And then it ends is on 40-ounce dreams and watermelon wishes, because apparently Robin Leach would end with champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
Champagne wishes.
So 40-ounce dreams and watermelon wishes, making it real ghetto for you. Bonnie likes watermelons, though.
I sure do.
There's lots of watermelon in my apartment these days.
Not for long.
Until we get more. Are watermelons expensive by you? Because they seem expensive lately. You know what? That's not really the point of anything. I gave this little skit a 4.5 because I thought it was funny. I thought it made its point really well. Like you could and then because there are these tours now, it almost makes you consider what it must be like to the people in those neighborhoods.
Live there, yeah.
Like
You're like, oh, these guys need to watch us again.
Because, I mean, as much as it sounds... Like, I know how terrible it sounds that I would go on that tour. I mean, I don't know that I really would. Because when I really think about it, I start considering... Imagine that's like a tour through my neighborhood. Oh, look at the little ghetto children play. Like, that sounds fucking disgusting when you, like, break it down. But that's kind of what these tours are. But then they probably bring in real money into the neighborhood and shit like that. So... maybe there's some positives. I don't know. But
it never... white justification? I don't know.
But all I know is when I heard him say this, it made me really consider, hey, these tours are real things. I don't know if they were real things back then, but they are today. And then I wonder how these people in these areas feel going, oh, there's another tour bus with a bunch of people taking pictures of this. Like, I don't know. 4.5 on 5, like I said, it's pretty good. And then we'll move on to Bonnie's absolutely favorite song, Giving Up the Nappy Dugout.
Yay.
Say candy, the bitches on my snicker. And no man, she could take on 3 men.
So I know at least 1 or 2 girls who have told me of parties they went to where guys would line up and they would go into the room and boom, 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 boom. Basically what Ice Cube's describing here. This is some real shit that happens in life. Probably not all walks of life, but Ice Cube and his people are basically swingers. Like,
I guess.
Like, they have a lot of gangbangs in which there's a lot of dudes fucking the same chick. That's not something that we do a lot in my life. I don't know. I don't know many people that, like, share girls like that. And I'm not against it. It's just more... I don't know anybody else that would be open to it.
He was younger at the time. He was probably still single. Like, you know, he was he was a go-getter.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, so he comes to the door, bang, bang, bang. Guy's like, Ice Cube, my daughter's not going out with you. She's
with a guy
Catholic.
named Ice Cube.
Not happening. Not blah, blah, blah. And then Ice Cube's like, allow me to interject here, sir. Your daughter was a nice girl. Now she is a slut, a queen treating just like King Tut, gobbling up nuts, sort of like a hummingbird, sucking up the Lench mob crew, and I'm coming third. And then I'm like, it's one thing to be the first guy in the group of guys to hit the girl. But Ice Cube's like, I'm the third one in the group of guys to come in. That means there's 2, maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, but the way he makes it sound to me is 2 other fellas got in there first, and then Ice Cube's going to get in there as the third group. Or maybe in general, she just is fucking her way on more one-on-one sessions through the Lench mob crew. Again, I still haven't had that happen in my life, and maybe I just wasn't cool enough to have a bunch of girls want to fuck me and the homies. Used to get straight A's, now she's just skipping class, and then he likes to grab on the hip and ass. Only 17 with a lot of practice. Oh, black boy Jimmy's and white boy Cactus. I'm like, man, she gets around. And basically, that's the rest of the song. It's going to be a bunch of lines like that. Candy, the bitch is on... quicker than you can say, Candy, the bitch is on my snicker. And, oh, man, she can take on 3 men built like He-Man. Her litty, itty, bitty twat got gallons of semen. I mean, how? Aren't they supposed to be wearing the Jimmy hats? But I guess because she's a slut. So Ice Cube's doing it, but not everybody's doing it. I don't know. Either way, I'm thinking too much there. The whole point is that the girl is a little bit of a whatever. But then in the second verse, he literally goes, Nympho, nympho, boy is she bad, get her all alone and out comes the knee pads. I know she's a minor and it is illegal, but the bitch is worse than Vanessa Del Rio, and if you decide to call rape, we got the little hooker on tape now. So
I feel like you could sing this song in today's time.
Well, what really I was thinking about, I'm like, okay, so you got her on tape, but doesn't that mean you got y'all on tape too?
And she's underage, and it's like...
I mean, maybe you have masks on or you don't really, but like, to me it seems like having child porn in your possession is really bad. That's not a good, like, that's a weird flex. Like, oh, we'll embarrass your daughter if you call the cops on us, but... I don't know, maybe, I mean, I get the point of it. and he's just trying to get the girl out and stuff. But it really seems to me like he's like, fuck it, we don't care if they're too young, we'll do what we gotta do. And I'm not trying to say that I understand the whole dynamics of everything in 1991, and I do believe that the lens we put on banging teenagers is very different today.
Yeah.
Like, here's something that people in Quebec don't really know, that the law of the age of consent in Quebec got changed from 14, meaning a 31-year-old could bang a 14-year-old, to 16, meaning you could do it to a 16-year-old, all good in the hood, like 2008.
Yeah.
2008. That's not even a long time ago. So technically speaking,
Yeah, I knew it was 14 when I grew up.
I mean, she'd
When
have
I
to
was
be
that
like
age.
real young in Quebec for Ice Cube to have this claim even going on, you know? I don't know what the age of consent is actually in LA at this time, but still, it's a weird flex. These are all weird flexes to me. I can see how in the bigger frame of things, this is because it's reflecting the now. And whether or not people want to admit it, there is certainly a sub-community where this is going to take place, where a bunch of guys pass around girls, where ladies might be just kind of delegated down to just a sex object that is used and whatnot. And I think if it's trying to reflect the reality of now...
But also she's saying like she's a nympho, so she's like clearly into all of this. Like it's not like necessarily that it's like a degrading thing. Like I think he's thinking it's kind of like gross, but he's still doing it. But
yeah,
like she's it's a consensual thing. Like she wants
You're
to
right.
be there.
Nobody here did imply that. I didn't mean to imply that the woman doesn't want to be there. I meant it to imply like this is how men might perceive these women, right? So this is the perception that many men have to women is like this. And Ice Cube has expressed on many occasions that it's not. You never get the feeling that he dislikes all women. He just likes that group of women who behave a certain way. So the type of girl who might behave like this is not somebody Ice Cube is necessarily going to trust, is what I feel like we've learned through his music.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think this is all girls, because in this case, he is talking about the girl who's willing to bang everybody. But also to point out, like, hey, Dad, I know you think your daughter's an angel. For real, it's a silly, weird thing, but guess what? This is what your daughter's actually into. This is what she's actually like, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I feel like it's a good song to put on this project in the sense that this is definitely a real part of life. And I don't think that this song is meant to be like, yeah, we all get laid. I think it's meant to point out, like, kind of be careful, because your daughter's, like, you're getting into this world with us, too. Like,
okay.
there is this inclusion, like, women are banging us because they think it's cool. Like, we're all these tough guys coming through, and I don't know, like, maybe it's meant to be like a cool thing, like this is what we do, but I also think it's meant to be like this is what's happening.
Right.
I don't know. I felt like, as far as my enjoyment went, this one was okay. It wasn't so much the rapping. The rapping is great. He's super creative and he's fun. The beat's okay and stuff, but the little cutting in with the skits and the vocals kind of got to me a bit.
Okay.
That wasn't my favorite. And then it's a lot of that on this song. And then it's all right. I ended up giving it a 4.25. Oh, fuck, there's the singing condom.
Yeah.
The condom sings. I forgot about the singing condom. Oh, my gosh. So this is possibly the weirdest.
Well, I wonder if it's like taken from like a real ad.
Maybe, but when after he's presented, like, whatever, when they're having sexual intercourse with a female like Cheryl, who you assume is this girl that we just described and whatever, you must use Jimmy Hat condoms. We're called Jimmy Hat condoms. Have you ever seen us? Most guys wear us round, rolled up on your penis. If you're real smart, you will always use this. Put me in your wallet, because some dummies lose us, screw us. And go on bareback without the bare facts. I'll have creepy crawlers crawling on your nutsack. So get the Jimmy, Jimmy to the hats. It's me and two brothers in a pack, because you get a pack of 3. And then as the KRS level, where it's like, run out and get your Jimmy Hat small and extra large. And that's really fucking hilarious. I forgot about that at first. That's hilarious. Honestly, the part and where he makes the condom sing to you, reminding you that it's totally okay to take on this girl and enjoy her as long as you stay protected, which probably means she's not having gallons of semen inside of her vagina. Throwing it out there. I give this
according to the first result on Google, it says something about Jimmy Hats is a very reliable pre-war brand of condoms. So I guess they've been around for a long time or something.
Either way, I gave it a 4.25 on 5 because of all the interruptions throughout it. But it honestly is a really fun song that describes a lifestyle that many people live and enjoy.
Hold on, wait. I take that back. They're talking about Fallout. And that's the word that they're talking about.
Okay.
So it's from a game.
Fallout is a very good game.
Anyways, so yeah, it's the Catholic daughter is going out with this guy and his Ice Cube, and the dad's all upset, just like you said, and like right away, like this, like the actual, it's sort of like a skit at the beginning, and like verse 1, like the first line is, "Your daughter was a nice girl, now she is a slut," and so it's like straight to the point, like. And then, like, we do hear her, like, kind of, like, acting like, "Daddy," like, acting like, a little angel to her, to her dad. And her dad probably still sees her like a little girl, like his little angel, and hasn't, like, realized that she's, like, a teenager with, like, hormones and stuff yet. And she's clearly, like, hiding it if this is what's going on. And, this girl sleeps with everybody, and, and everybody loves her, and the nappy dugout apparently means vagina. I had to look that up. I didn't actually know what that meant. And yeah, just he keeps referencing that there's, like, a lineup of guys, like, wanting to, like, bang her, and he's gonna do whatever with his, like, with, like, this guy's daughter, and he's gonna, he's able to just do whatever he wants with her, and I think that's kind of, like, I guess shocking, but definitely, talks about, like, using a condom, especially when fucking girls like her, somebody who just, like, fucks all these guys, and, so, I mean, it was good. It's, I guess sort of, like, another reality, another time in his reality, so I thought it was a good beat, and, I gave it 4.5 on 5.
At the very end,
Definitely leads into the next song.
the condom goes, "Or this might happen to you," and what he's referring to is "Look Who's Burning."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the bitch from up the street with the big fat tail. Who always
If you have unprotected sex, you will end up in a situation where perhaps you'll get the VD or some other shit. I'm not gonna lie, my favorite part of this entire song is the Cool Mo D sample when he goes, "What have I done stuck my dick in?" The way he says that one lyric, that is my favorite part of this entire
What
fucking
have
song.
I done or stuck
What
my
have
dick
I done
in?
stuck my dick in? It's just fucking great, and it fits this song so well. And then, the slick Rick stepped out of myself. Oh no, why is my thing burning like this? And it's so good. Like, it's just showing you gotta be a little careful, because if you do have sex with that girl who's going around, and when you think about the last song now with keeping in this song in mind, is to point out that girl exists, and she is maybe gonna have sex with 200 guys or whatever over and over again. Just everybody's banging her in a row and whatnot. Well, if you're not being very careful, then when you go to the free clinic, it's filled to capacity. How bad can a piece of ass be? Very bad. Blunt. Like, there's not even any fanciful shit. Just, that's how bad it can be.
Very bad.
As bad as it can be. So I had to make the trip, and thank God I didn't have the drips. I was there, so a hoe couldn't give me that, just to get 20 free Jimmy hats. So Ice Cube's not there because he was stupid. Ice Cube was going to get free condoms, because, of course, when you're young, go to the fucking sex clinic place and get
Especially
the
if
free
you're
condoms.
just going through girls like that.
You're going to need them, man, because you might go through 20 Jimmys in a night based on Ice Cube's, like, fervor that he might have going on. And then he looks up and he sees the girl from up the street with the big fat tail, who told Ice Cube to go to hell because she didn't want to get with him, I suppose. And then it looks like she's sitting there burning down there. Miss Thang, Miss Gonorrhea. Man, it's a trip how the world keeps turning. It's 1991. Look who's burning. And he's kind of almost laughing at the people who are in this situation, second verse, and it's kind of just the same thing as we going through. Now everybody's a victim, and you can go see him, and you'll hear more claps in the Coliseum, sitting there all quiet and embarrassed. Well, there go that bitch who was careless. I remember she wouldn't give the cock to anybody who lived on the block. Now, ho, look what you got. Bend that big ass over for the shot. So this girl wouldn't fuck him and his boys, went around and fucked whoever they fucked, and then caught some stuff, I guess because him and his boys uses rubbers. So the better move would have been to intercourse with Ice Cube's safe sex squad. Can we call them that? The safe sex squad?
Sure.
Fuck some college guy who was fucking everybody around in town, and it's just kind of pointing out, like, you fuck this guy who fucked 200 people, it's almost like you fucked those 200 people.
Yep.
People kind of say that stuff, but there's a little bit of truth to it in terms of risky behavior. If you just stick your Jimmy into things unprotected, it's a bad news bear situation when you get something like the AIDS or the whatevers. I mean, something like 1 in 6 people on this continent have herpes at this point, and like 1 in 4 people have HPV. We are really bad at this, guys.
Yeah.
Millennials, we need to Jimmy up. And then in the third verse, it ain't my fault you got the heebie-jeebies, but you still try to act like you don't see me, so I walk over and say, hi, bitch, don't try to act surprised. Should have put a sock on the pickle and made pussy wouldn't be brown, blowing smoke signals. So now he's walking up to this girl who just kind of ignored him and his people, and it's like, hey, I see you sitting here in this place. Don't act like you don't know me. You gotta take the penicillin. You gotta do it. Ha ha. You're the one who's losing out.
Yep.
You'll be returning with HIV. R.I.P. And then the song kind of ends out. And I'm like, definitely a good cautionary tale. Wear the rubbers or you get the situation. Ice Cube's a bit of a dick harassing this woman inside of the sex clinic. I mean, from what I can tell, his only real justification for it is she didn't fuck him and his people, and just a general disdain for people who have unsafe sex. But I don't know why he wants to have sex with her if she has unsafe sex. But there's a logic in this song that I can't get past.
I don't think he says he wants to have sex with her. I think that he makes a point that he's saying that nobody's going to want to sleep with her.
But he makes the point that it sounds like in the past she turned him down. She used to tell him go to hell, and now she's here. Haha, you got VD. You wouldn't fuck me. I guess I wasn't good enough for you. Turns out you're a hoe.
Yeah.
That is basically the song in a nutshell.
Yeah, I guess.
Haha, you got VD because you're a hoe and you wouldn't have sex with me.
That's what you get
so that's
for not
the part.
sleeping with him.
That's what I'm saying. It's like that little angle on the song is a little bit
Because
like...
he would have worn a condom and been a gentleman.
That's it, you know, instead of the other guys who chose not to. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I feel like the bulk of Ice Cube's point here is very good. The really petty part is like, come on, dude. I mean, you're 22. It's fine. It's not like he's a fully grown adult yet. He maybe hasn't finessed his angles with the ladies at this point. I mean, there's a difference between being like a player and getting girls and saying some shit that doesn't make you look a little bit lame in hindsight. And I think the way that masculinity plays out sometimes makes dudes look a little bit lame. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well,
and
sometimes dudes are just lame.
Like, if you really, really are sitting there going, you didn't fuck me and you got VD, I mean, it's not the coolest argument to make in my 2019, all this time later perspective. Anyway.
So yeah, I mean, it kind of starts off with like a conversation between like him and this other guy like at this free clinic, and it's like those other like he's just saying like I'm just going to get condoms, and the other guy's like, oh, it's just for my job, I have to get like a checkup, and she talks to like the nurse or whatever, the person at the desk, and she says, oh, you know, we don't do checkups here, it's just for like, you know, syphilis and chlamydia and herpes and like all the things or whatever. She like names it, and it's a sexually transmitted diseases and stuff like that. And then she's like, what's wrong, is it burning? And so like obviously like this is like a common thing that's happening, and just like over and over and over again that this is just going on. And he kind of like describes like some of the symptoms, like the drip and like the burning pee and like things like that. Like that's, you know, things you don't necessarily want. And then just like realizing like what did I stick my dick into, like, you know, when he gets you know, whatever he has, and then yeah, he kind of makes fun of like this girl, and, you know, realizes that she must have something, and whatever. You covered most of that, and it has a really interesting cool beat, and I like the sound of it, and the guy the girl slept with is like feeling like his pee is burning when he's talking about like the girl that he sees, I think, at the clinic, and just sort of like a warning song to, you know, to wear a condom, and about like STIs and HIV, which was like, you know, a pretty big deal still like at this time, and was spreading quickly. And so like there was like a really like big push for the use of condoms, and like I think there was like a lot of money put into advertising and things like that. Like it was really like to get everybody to use them again, or I think that, I mean, they have existed for a long time, but I think like to really rekindle it and to just remind people that, you know, post like 60s, where everybody was just free love and everybody was fucking everybody, you know, without any condoms or consequences. And it was just like, you know, yeah, people still did drugs and got diseases, and it just carried on until I guess the 80s, you know, a lot of it. So thanks, Woodstock. So it teaches people a valuable lesson, and I think that that's like something great that he likes to do. And so I guess it's a 4.75 for being like a great public service announcement, kind of.
All right, so I believe it is time for us to talk about a bird in the hand.
I wish I had that.
This youngster, I didn't have no money, so now I gotta punch the clock at a slow.
So what happened when you put peanuts on the balcony?
Birds came. The blue jay came.
And what did the blue jay do? It squawked.
It
and
squawked.
It made a
So
whole
very
lot
loud.
of noise in the morning, and Bonnie was very happy.
I mean, it woke me up. Like, that's how loud it was squawking. And yeah, I'm kind of like a crazy bird lady. What can I say?
It's really weird. So in this case, it starts off with Big Bird. Say, look at this. I've been cleaning out my nest, and I found an old book of poetry. Everybody's excited, right? Because when Big Bird spits poetry and shit, you know some educational value and nuggets is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Good child-friendly shit. And then I heard the first line, fresh out of school because I was a high school grad. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I realized on Mad City by Kendrick Lamar, when MC8 goes, fresh out of school because I was a high... Whenever he kind of takes the idea of, I feel like this song... and brings it into that Kendrick track. No, I'm not gonna lie. Genius told me.
Okay.
Genius gave it. He says interpolated by, and then I thought about it, and then I read it, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's true. Sometimes Genius saves us so much time. But I thought that was a really cool thing because it really shows how, like, almost culturally significant all of this stuff is, and all that stuff I was saying about beats. This beat kind of like kicks in and you're like, whoa, there's like nothing else on this album that sounds like this beat, in my opinion, and it is maybe my favorite beat for real. That's not the other beat that I said was maybe my favorite beat. This one just samples James Brown and B.B. King, and just the combination, it has this tense build up and it just flows in so well as he starts rhyming in this really short but serious verse. Fresh out of school because I was a high school grad. Got to get a job. I was a high school dad. Wish I got paid by rapping to the nation, but that's not likely, so here's my application. Pass it to the man at AT&T. And then it keeps going from that point, but we look at the beginning. He's got a kid. Mm-hmm. He's got to do the right thing.
Yep.
He's got to get that money into his life to pay for some shit.
He's got to find a job. He's trying to be a respectable person.
Wants to be a rapper. Like, who doesn't want to be a rapper?
Right.
And then chances of you actually getting that fame and claim is not high. There's like an ice cube. There's not many ice cubes. And then he starts describing like how, you know, there's no SC for this youngster. I didn't have no money, so now I have to punch the clock. Got a slave and be half a man. But Whitey says there's no room for the African. Always knew that I would clock G's, but welcome to McDonald's. Man, take your order, please. And it's like, as a black guy trying to get hired, it seems impossible. Mm-hmm. He can't get any good jobs, so he's stuck at fucking McDonald's being like serving food that might give you cancer. And when you think about the bullshit food that goes into the fast food industry, and the more you learn about food science, that's very powerful lyrics to be putting in. Just the idea to watch what you eat because it's poisonous in that regard and could give you cancer. Good on you, Ice Cube. Because my son doesn't take no for an answer, because son's got to eat because he's got to go do some shit. shit. So he's ultimately got to do something that's terrible. Then pays taxes but gets nothing back. And then he has to worry about diapers and bottles. And what, do you know what is Similac? I could have looked it up. I just never ended up doing it.
I think it's like a milk substitute, like a.
Right. Anyway, so then he starts questioning: do I sell crack to get like clothes and shit to wear, or does he wait for First Bush or Jesse Jackson or Operation Push, which I believe was one of those movements that was trying to help out the hoods and whatnot, and to like give him money, he's got to wait for if he gets lucky that his neighborhood gets the handout this time around or not. In his thing, it all needs a douche, which is funny to say because that's the shit that cleans out your vag.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just, decides, whatever, I'm going to sell some crack to the corner house bitches or whatever, or anybody you know. So you got a bird, which is a kilo of coke, and then he makes a whole bunch of money, but then the feds get him, and he doesn't follow the plan of the presidency, which is probably to go through that regular life plan that you're supposed to do. So you get clipped off of that, and now he's never going to get love again because he's a felon, and his community is going to shun him for being a criminal type, but then everyone else is going to deny him opportunities for that. And then who cares in general, because blacks are too fucking broke to be a Republican, which is a powerful statement too, right? Because you need money to really be a Republican. That's what that party's about. It's for the rich, and
which we'll talk about later on.
And so now I remember I used to be cool until I stopped filling out my W-2. Now senators are getting high, and your plan against the ghetto backfired. So you got a pep talk, but sorry, this is our only room to walk, because we don't want a drug push, but a bird in the hand is worth more than a bush. So it's like your whole situation, how you wanted to deal with the hood, all of your plans, it's not fucking working. You have senators who are getting high. Didn't the mayor of DC get caught smoking crack around this point? Or maybe that came later on. I don't know.
I definitely know the mayor of Toronto did at one point.
That was way later on. And his brother is now the premier of Ontario, ruining shit.
Yep.
So it's a fucking weird world we live in right now. But it's just like it kind of points, we don't want this drug situation, but at the end of the day, a bird in hand is worth more than a bush, which is playing up on another reference, like a book in hand is worth more than two on the shelf or whatever. I know there's variation. It's a real one.
Not that I've never heard that, but it's
whatever it is.
A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. It just means like you.
Oh, is it the two? Is it birds?
Yeah, it's because like you don't want to like.
Yeah,
because you have something, and if you let that go, you're going to attempt
to
get to two more. It might not be worth it.
But then he flips it to be worth more than a bush, as in a president and
President
whatever.
George Bush Sr.
So having the crack in your hand, it's actually worth money, is a real tangible commodity.
It's worth more than anything Bush would ever give you.
So tell the politicians, tell the hustlers, live and let live. Yeah. So it's almost like this song's a bit of a justification for how a person with the best of intentions and trying to seek out the right opportunities and do all of the right things ends up selling crack because your kid's got to eat, which is definitely something that a lot of people in the middle class world don't acknowledge as a reality.
Yep.
Like, their baby's crying, they got a million people that have helped them out, but that might not be the same thing when everyone else is going through the same struggle as you are.
Yep.
You get a pep talk. I don't know. It's really good, man. This is possibly one of the best songs on the album, in my opinion, and I give it another 5 on 5.
Yeah. I mean, I only have like a little bit to add to it. I mean, that's what the whole story is.
Yeah.
It basically just that there's no support from the government, and there's not really a lot of options for him and for a lot of people, and how discriminated against, and how they aren't seen as serious people to hire or whatever it is, so he has to turn to drugs, and this is something that we've heard before, and like this is not something that's new necessarily, and it is a way to make money, and it isn't always the best way, but it's unfortunate because and he's clearly not satisfied with the status quo. I think that's what he's saying, like things have to change, like we need to things need to be different, and it is sort of like an unfortunate truth that he's telling us. So there's a good, strong message. I really like this one. I gave it a 4.75.
Very good. On that note, let's talk about dogs and how they are man's best friend.
Okay.
Do run up and try to play mine. I'd rather have an AK than a fucking K9, cause if you shot your
All right, Bonnie, since you made it very clear on the last song that I
boy.
keep explaining everything
That's
and there's
okay.
nothing left to talk about, go ahead, tell the people about the doggies that men hang out with and we are loyal to.
Sure.
Woof.
No. So it used to be a dog, but now it's a gun. And like that's basically what this is about. And like the background or like the chorus or whatever like has like a sample from Snoop Dogg from Dog Pound, I believe.
It's Atomic Dog
Yeah.
by George Clinton.
Oh,
And
because
then-
Snoop Dogg also
Bow
uses
Wow
it.
Wow.
That's why.
I think the dog catcher part comes from Snoop Dogg, but I might be wrong about that. But the Bow Wow Wow Yippee Yo Yippee Yay is Atomic Dog, I believe.
Okay. All right. But anyways, I thought that it was cool. I thought it was just like a kind of like a shout out to like another rapper in Compton.
Well, it's because this came out
Or LA.
2 years before What's My Name,
Oh, well,
which is a '93 release.
then my bad. Wow, cool. Good to know. Now I know.
Dog, dog. Okay, sorry, go on.
Yep. And guns are small, they're easy to conceal, and it makes them feel safe because, other people have these weapons. And he kind of describes that it's also like a faster results and more definite results than just like a dog biting somebody. So in terms of like your protection. And then I liked how like there was like the sort of propaganda type film or whatever voice that we hear. And it's like the typical profile of a gun owner is like 30, white,
Male.
middle class, male,
That was off.
and what?
That was off.
Yeah, I guess that was it. And so clearly, like, it's not what's the reality or what's his reality, because and times have changed, and there's a lot of guns on the black market and stolen guns, and it just is like a whole different reason behind guns, and like it's just sort of like a very ignorant, I guess, to think that that's sort of like what everybody who has guns is what they're like, and that is not necessarily also that there's criminals that have it too. So
I think like even to that end, it's because a lot of propaganda goes around that's like, oh, the only people who have guns are these violent criminal types. The only reason people have guns is for these things. Like, good people don't need to have guns until you look at the metrics, and the largest percentage of people who own guns
are just like average
are
Americans.
literally me. I am the reflection of that, over 30 white male in the middle class. I am the most likely person to own a gun in America, apparently.
Yeah.
And I get it. I do.
Yeah.
But I think it's a fascinating way to just take so like the reason there's so many guns isn't the hood. It's because so many people love guns of that group, and maybe now there's just guns everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, that was it. I mean, it's just sort of like a sad reality. But a good song overall. I gave it a 4.5 on 5.
I mean, I totally appreciated this one too, because he's like, here's another topic I'm addressing, so learn a quick lesson about your Smith & Wesson, sit your aspect and comprehend as I let you know about man's best friend. It used to be a dog like Lassie, but now in 91 it's a gun if you ask me. Just like a Jimmy hat's used for protection, I use my 9 when suckers start deflexing. So basically, he needs a gun because it's safer than a dog. And he goes to the point to say that if you have a dog, your dog is just going to get shot too, and then you and your dog are going to be dead on a stretcher or taken out and injured. And so he's not down with that. Forget about a dog, he'll shit in the den, on top of that, dog's pooping places, so they're not even useful. Whereas a gun will protect you and not poop in the den. Therefore, a gun is better than dog. Then you have the hook playing again, which is the doggy stuff. It's funky. It's really fun to listen to. And then the second point is just kind of like pointing out, like, yeah, guns, I can conceal them. I can't put a motherfucking pit bull under a coat in the small of my back. So instead, I'll take my Beretta. I bet you it'll work 100% better because it'll keep me out of danger with 16 clips and 1 in the chainer. 16 in the clip and 1 in the trainer. Anyway, so the whole point is my gun will protect me more than your dog. So my gun is now man's best friend, because back in the day, a dog did serve that role as a protecting force in your life. And since it can no longer be that, Instead, it will be my gun. And then I like in the outro sample when he goes, just don't let me see you shoot no dogs. And so, you know, making sure that we keep, because dogs matter, and I'm a huge fan of dogs, so I don't want to see nobody shoot dogs. And then, the last thing you hear is just Take That Motherfuckers, which is sampled from Bonnie and Clyde 2, which is off of the first album. Anyway, I think that is all there really is to say about this song. It isn't the lengthiest piece of experience, but it is quite solid. And as a result, I gave this track a 4.5 on 5. So, on that note, I know we're not quite at the halfway point of the album, but in what's left to talk about, 3 of them are real short. So I think we're going to call this the halfway and end of part 1, and we will get to talking about the rest of the album into part 2, which will be filmed in a couple of days after this one has recorded. So feel free to leave that comment, and you might just get entered into the favorite comments of the part 2 video when it gets read. So if you want to be in our YouTube video, that's the easiest way for you to get your name in there.
Yep.
Just leave a comment. Holla at us. We'll talk to you. You can also subscribe to the channel for more content like part 2. And you can hit the like button if you liked it, because YouTube likes that. And then we like you more. Not to say we don't like you, but we will like you more if you hit the like button.
Yep.
And special thanks to the patrons, Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black Hurricane, Lindell Williams. They support what we do. They helped us get a new camera. And this episode is because DJ Black Hurricane used his Patreon powers to make us review it. So we're talking about that now. And you can support us for $1 or more a month and help us get to the next level of betterness and all that good shit. We also made some music over here. You can check that out on the channel. Let us know what you think. And get on with the rest of life now. Hope you have a great week and all that good stuff.
Bye, guys.